So again, thank you for joining us for the fourth session of this special winter lectures. This will be the last one in this series. It was a dry run for myself to go this weekend when I have to give the talks in Maui. But it's funny with the things that have gone on in the states politically. I really don't have an urge to go down to the States. So sorry, Yvonne, but um, it is what it is. And so I had agreed to go to Maui before any of this craziness that's been going on. Anyways, so welcome, and let me just share some. Okay, let me just make this. Oh, hang on. Yeah, yeah. Okay. This expand this a bit. Okay. So last week we talked about the practice of Namu Amida Butsu or the Nembutsu, and um, yeah, afterwards, as I'd been mentioning before as well, that I wanted feedback or comments, and there were a couple that really sort of caught my eye, and they were very helpful comments. So I'd like to thank you. I'm not going to name names here, but one of the questions or comments was that they wanted how to explain Jodo Shinshu to someone who knows very little about Buddhism was one question that came up. And another one was, what is the main objective of this lecture series? So I know I have a tendency to ramble and talk a lot, and it might seem like it's difficult maybe to follow a certain trend or direction. And so I wanted to first of all point out, what we've done so far, and then go into the final session. Okay. So in the first one, so the whole premise for this lecture series started off with me saying about how um, Jodo Shinshu appears on one hand to be quite different from other Buddhist schools. And I gave the example of when I first went to Japan and I was part of a panel discussion, and there was a Sri Lankan foreign student who said he couldn't recognize our form of Buddhism as being Buddhism, um, because I have a minister with hair, and also we have families, and our members eat meat and even drink alcohol. So it didn't seem like the kind of Buddhism that he was used to. And so I wanted to make sure that people understood in fact, Shinan Shoni's teaching is based squarely on the fundamentals of Buddhism. And we did this by examining the first teaching of the historical Buddha, the discourse on turning the wheel of the Dharma. And the three major points within there. The first was the middle path, and how, in comparing what Shakyamuni called the middle path with reviewing Shinra's life and his middle path of being neither monk nor layman, um, there was a definite example of Shinran looking at a middle path. And then we also went on to talk about the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Noble Path, and how the path helps us lead to nirvana or enlightenment, peace, and how the Buddhists, when we look at the Eightfold Noble Path, that you can break it down into three things. The noble paths are related to teachings, and then there's the practice, and finally, enlightenment or wisdom. And so, Buddhist teachings or philosophies use as their pillars. These are the three pillars of Buddhism. You need the teaching, you need a practice that is based on those teachings, and finally, those practices have to end up giving you the attainment of enlightenment. So we then looked at what is the practice in I first looked at Shinan showing the canon of his work, the true teaching, practice, and attainment of the Pure Land Way, or the Kyogyo Shinsho. And in there, it clearly it's broken up into six different chapters, the first three chapters being paramount importance. The first chapter is the chapter on uh, teaching, and it clearly states, it's a very short chapter, but in there it clearly states that according to Pure Land Buddhism, the primary teaching is what we call the largest sutra on Amida. And that's the sutra that talks about how Amida comes about being. And of that larger sutra of Amida, um, when Amida Buddha was in his what we call the causal state of being uh, the Bodhisattva, Dhammakara Bodhisattva, he is said to have made 48 vows. And in going over many kalpas, a very long time, he practices to fulfill each of these 48 vows. And of these 48 vows, we say that the 18th vow is the 18th vow is the vow that we call the primal vow, or the Hongan in Japanese. And that's where we get the name Honganji, the primal vow temple, which is the name of our mother temple, Honganji. And this 18th vow is where we find the primary focus of Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. The practice part is the 17th vow, based on the 17th vow, which states that the Buddhas from the 10 quarters will all praise the name of Amida. So the practice becomes the recitation of the name of Amida Buddha. And so then, um, today's talk, I wanted to focus more on the other facet of the Nim, which is what we call the Shinjin, which is sometimes referred as awakened mind, or entrusting heart, or sometimes faith had been used in earlier translations, although faith seems to be not as used in this day and age. In trusting heart seems to be the most prominent translation being used right now, popular translation being used right now. But it is basically the experience of an awakening. And the awakening is to the calling voice of Amida Buddha. So in the Kyogyo Shinsho, the true teaching practice of attainment of Pure Land Way, in the chapter on true Shinjin, in trusting heart, Shinan states, he calls this a one thought moment of Shinjin. And it says, contemplating true and real Shinjin, I find there is the one thought moment. One thought moment expresses the ultimate brevity of the instant of realization of Shinjin and manifests the vast, inconceivable mind of joyfulness. Here let us turn to the largest sutra, which states all sentient beings, as they hear the name, realize even one thought moment of shinjin and joy, which is directed to them from Amita's sincere mind, and aspiring to be born in that land, they then attain birth and dwell in the stage of non-retrogression. He continues on by saying, the word here in the passage from the larger sutra means that sentient beings, having heard how the Buddha's vow arose, its origin and fulfillment, are altogether free of doubt. This is to hear. Shinjin is shinjin that is directed to beings through the power of the primal vow. Joy expresses gladness in body and mind. Even includes both many and few. One thought moment, because Shinjin is free of double mindedness, one thought moment is used. It is a mind that is single. The mind that is single is a true cause of birth in the pure, fulfilled land. Okay. So, this one thought moment of joy, it is that instantaneous or that one moment of clarity that one has about Jolo Shinshu. And from that point on, it becomes, it doesn't mean you become enlightened at that point. But what it means is that you see life as it is and you accept life as it is. And you accept life with gratitude and appreciation. And there are many examples of individuals who have had moments of clarity or awakening. And there was one case for myself. W- one of my one of the teachers that I really honored and respected was the Reverend Professor Taitetsu Unno. I've had the opportunity, the yeah, opportunity to listen to him on a number of occasions. He's passed on now, but one of the most endearing memories I have of Uno Sensei and Michael earlier before we started, Michael Martin said that he missed last week's session because of a senior moment, and I told him that I sort of touch on that in today's this evening's discussion or talk, but. Um, one of the endearing events that I still recall today was when I joined, or yeah, the Northwest Buddhist Convention. So in the BCA, Buddhist Church of America, they have different districts. And the Northwest Buddhist District is a district that includes Seattle, Tacoma, White River, Portland, are the temples that are included in this grouping. And they have annually a convention, and it's usually rotated, the host, it rotates from time to time. And on a number of the occasions are temples from the lower mainland. Some of us have gone down, particularly when they've held it like in a place like Seattle. We have gone down to participate. And on one of these occasions, Taitetsu Unno sensei was the keynote speaker. And he was, I've told this in Dharma sessions before, so you may have heard me talk about this one. But during the keynote speech, Taitetsu Unno was talking about when he was a much younger man that he was down in the Berkeley area, and they had a gathering. I think it was in San Francisco, a Buddhist gathering, and it was hosted by the Young Buddhist Association of San Francisco district, and the key and what they were hosting was a talk by the renowned Zen Buddhist Daisetsu Suzuki. Daisetsu Suzuki is quite well known as one of the early introducers of Buddhism to the West, particularly Zen Buddhism. But um, uh, Suzuki Sensei's mother came from a Jodo Shinshu temple members family and was quite a devout Jodo Shinshu follower. And in fact, uh, Daisetsu Suzuki, in his latter years, did quite a bit of translation of Shinran Shonin's writings into English. Anyway, so the Young Buddhist Association had this gathering, and they had invited Suzuki Roshi as their guest. So after the public lecture, they had a private session with Suzuki Sensei and some of the leaders of the Young Buddhist Association, of which Taitetsu Uno was one of them. And so they sat in a circle, he said, and the Suzuki Sensei asked him, and I don't know if you ever you can Google it, you could take a look at a picture of Suzuki Daisetsu. He's got a very your memorable face, and he's got these really big bushy eyebrows, like long eyebrows. Okay, it's like he has caterpillars on his forehead almost. But anyways, they were having a question and answer session. But of course, everybody, all the young Buddhists in attendance, they were all very timid. And, here's this great Zen master right in front of them, and nobody, dared asking a question that might seem uh, insulting to Suzuki Sensei. So they were all very quiet for a while, and Uno Sensei, feeling, well, somebody has to speak up. He raised his hand, and he thought he'd be profound, and he said, Suzuki Sensei, he said, can you please tell us the meaning of karma? Meaning of karma. And Suzuki Sensei apparently looked at him with this very almost stern look, and he said, and Suzuki Sensei was actually quite fluent in English. He actually married a girl from, was she North American or British? I can't remember one of the two. Anyways, so he was actually quite fluent in English, and he looked at Uno Sensei, young Uno Sensei, and he said, "The elbow bends inward." And that's all he said. The elbow bends inward, right? So, of course, Titus Sensei said he was so afraid that he couldn't ask him what the heck that means, right? And so that line, he said, became a koan for him for the rest of his life. A koan is that paradoxical question that Zen Buddhism often uses. Um, and one is supposed to meditate on that paradoxical question. So when Una Sensei heard this, it became sort of his koan for his life, right? And he couldn't figure out, what the heck is what the heck was, the elbow bends inward. How the heck does that? What does that and karma have anything in common? And in Uno Sensei said, it wasn't until about 30 years later, maybe 40 years later, when he was in his 50s and 60s, when he realized, his body wasn't working the same as it was before. And he said he began to realize that there's a naturalness to everything. And if you think about it, if the elbow didn't bend inwards, um, it would be very difficult for us to eat anything, right? Because to get it to our mouth, it would be very hard. So he realized that there's a naturalness to life, and that this understanding of naturalness, or accepting the naturalness as it is the Buddha Dharma. And I think Shinjin is also this awakening to the naturalness of life, awakening. And when we say the calling voice of Amida Buddha, it is the infinite life that sustains us. It is the infinite light, the wisdom all around us that we receive, that sustains us. And awakening to that is Shinjin. And this awakening doesn't really happen through my calculations. It goes beyond my calculations. I mean, when you think about your own lives, or just think about the fact that you're here this evening joining this, yes, it's taken your physical effort, and you had to click on your computer, etc., etc. But really, when you think about it, there's been something that has brought you here to these sessions, something from even before. And that is the naturalness, the calling voice of the Dharma. And so uh, Uno Sensei gave his talk. But then something miraculous happened. Well, I call it miraculous. One may differ. Um, Uno Sensei uh, paused for a moment. Then he started his Dharma talk right from the beginning, the exact same Dharma talk over again from the beginning. And there was this silence throughout the audience, the room, because everybody thought, well, it was known that by this point, Uno Sensei was getting a little bit more forgetful. But no one understood that he, in fact, had what had the onset of the dementia. So when he started repeating his talk right from the very beginning again, everybody sort of paused, and we were all kind of didn't know how to react, because here's this great sensei, and he's repeating the same Dharma message from the beginning. And it was then that his wife just gently said, "Daddy, you already gave that talk." And he smiled and he said, "Oh, I'm getting forgetful in my old age." But then in that message, or in that forgetfulness, Uno Sensei was completely at peace. It wasn't like he was frustrated that he had forgotten. Um, he accepted the conditions of life. He accepted the forgetfulness of his being. And I think those are uh, because he had an underlying foundation of entrusting in the infinite life that sustains us, because he had accepted without a doubt the working of the Buddha, the Buddha, that that there was what we call the settled mind, that he could accept his own faults. He can accept his own forgetfulness, as he was just as he is. And so I think when we talk about the shinjing of um, the Nembutsu, that one thought moment, it's that moment where we do have an awakening or clarity, when we really appreciate that instant of life that we have. And I've had several, or it's not often, but from time to time you do encounter those events where you do have um, a moment of connectedness, of clarity. Um, and so when we talk about this shinjin or one thought moment, it is the expression of Namo Amida Butsu. And so I wanted to uh, uh, end off my talks by, let me share. Oops, did this move over? No, it didn't move over, did it? You're not seeing this. Okay, let me stop sharing this for a second. Stop share, and then I'll bring that up. Share this. Okay. Okay. So you all see this now, right? So in Shinran Shonin's writings, he talks about the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Um, and I mentioned like, did I mention last week? I think I mentioned last week about how Nembutsu, or actually, I changed some of the notes, so I may not have mentioned it. But this, what we call Nembutsu, um, originally was considered the mental visualization of the Buddha, the image of the Buddha, visualizing it within yourself. And so when you look at the character Nem Butsu, it can be broken down in the first character, Nem, can be broken down to two parts, now and heart. Now, heart. So Nem Butsu means now heart Buddha, okay, which means at this instant, the Buddha is in my heart. And that's a literal translation of the word Nembutsu. And in Chinese, they say Nianfo, Nianfo. And it was to visualize or have the Buddha within your heart. Okay. And it wasn't until um, uh, the Shantao in China who specifically said that Nian Butsu Nian Fo is the recitation of the six character or of the name of Amida, which is this six characters: Na, Mu, A, Mi, Da, and Butsu. Okay. See, how can I show? Yeah. Yeah, there's six characters on the screen there, and they're read from the top. Na, Mu, A, Mi, Da, and Butsu. Right. And this literally is translated as Namo is comes from the Sanskrit word Namos, same root as Namaste, and it means taking refuge. So taking refuge in Amida Buddha. Okay, taking refuge in Amida Buddha. So when we think about refuge, we're looking at our safety, our sanctuary, and where do we find true peace? Where do we find true happiness? And when we look at the things that are not things that are relative, it's very hard to find that true peace, true happiness. Some people have looked for peace and happiness in love. Some people have looked for truth and happiness in wealth and status. But you often see, I mean, divorce exists because love is not necessarily always um, the same, or love changes over time to a point where love can become hate as well, right? So, in fact, love is considered one of our human defilements or passions, if you will. Okay. It can be great, but it can also be terrible. There's that uh, old Meatloaf song. I don't know if some of you know who Meatloaf is. Some of you don't know who Meatloaf is, but um, there's a song. I think it's called "Paradise" by the Dashboard Light, and the very famous line is that I would promise that I would love you till the end of time, and now I'm praying for the end of time to hurry up and arrive. That type thing, you know. So love can be great in passion, but it can also be very the opposite as well. But anyways, um, so when we think about where we find true and real peace and true and real settled mind, it does come from this what we call Amida Buddha, and this is a representation. So Amida Buddha is taking. So Namos means to take refuge, and Amida, Amida Butsu, it comes from two root words, Amitayus and Amitabha. Okay, Amitayus is so mita means to measure. A is a negative, so when you say amita, it means immeasurable, okay, or infinite. And the suffix yus is life. And if you use the suffix ba, it's light. So this is the Buddha of infinite life and boundless light. Okay? That's what Amida Buddha is. So when we say Namo Amida Butsu, we are saying taking refuge in this Buddha of infinite life and infinite light. And so when we think of what Shinjin, this entrusting heart, is all about, and as I mentioned earlier, in that one thought moment when we receive with joy this working, or we awaken to this working, that I do not exist alone by myself, that I am embraced by so much, then at that moment there is this acceptance of who I am. So it can be a very moving and dynamic event that happens. That you know, we used to have a minister. He's passed away now, Reverend Michael Hayashi, and some, I think Karen knows Michael Hayashi, but some of you remember Michael Hayashi had a very rough upbringing, very rough upbringing, and I remember in one of his Dharma talks, he said he had contemplated committing suicide a number of times, and it was at one time when he was contemplating it, that he suddenly had an awakening. He said that you know, those Dharma messages that said, "My life is not just my life, but my life is based on the infinite life that sustains me." That he realized he wasn't alone, that he was, in fact, sustained by all of this life. And he said it made him realize that um, the path of suicide was for him not the answer, because he realized that he had to live for all of life, like he was part of all of life. And I remember him giving that Dharma message at one time, and it was very moving. And so those are the incidents in life when we talk about Shinjin. It's this awakening. And so, although we say Shinjin in Jodo Shinshu, I believe it is very similar to other religious organizations or our beliefs when they talk about having a religious awakening. Okay, and so now, um, I should clarify that because I might get in trouble with some Shinshu scholars that say no, it's different from other religions. But to me, I think it's very much like having that sorry, having that awakening, if you will. Okay, um, so basically the so this Namu Amida Butsu can be there are different iterations for it. You know what? I'm not going to even go through that tonight. Um, but but coming to the point of what was uh, what did I say here at the beginning? Let me just go back. Oh yeah, what is the main objective? Okay, what is the main objective? And the main objective was to hopefully to get the message across um, that our teaching, Jodo Shinshu teaching, is based on the foundation of Buddhism, which to me is represented by this awakening of the oneness of life, of the uh, working of Amida Buddha. So, as a Jodo Shinshu minister, that is my perspective on it. And when we have that awakening, or when we come to this understanding, then outer trappings become just that, outer trappings. So, whether we eat meat, whether we, and I know some ministers that enjoy alcohol, whether we drink alcohol, um, those are outer trappings. Whether I have hair, those are other trappings. The most important thing is through listening with our listening with our hearts and minds. Um, we then, over time, have an awakening that happens, and we have clarity that happens, and we can appreciate that my life is interconnected with all life, and that I am accepted just as I am. That the Dharma or Amida Buddha accepts me just as I am. Doesn't mean I need to stop trying to be better or trying to be nicer or whatever it might be, but it also means that accepting who I am is very important. So that is where I wanted to end up um, finishing today with. I know it's shorter than in the past, but I wanted to also provide an opportunity for discussion at the end here. So I'm going to just remove my spotlights and ask if anyone has any comments or would like to share something at this time. Yes, Junichi-san. Oh, you're muted right now. You have to unmute yourself first. Oh, you're still muted. Oh, there. Okay.
uh, Accepting as I am. Uh, Normally, uh, I don't know who I am or what I am doing, or that's more problem. So I like to accept myself, but this guy doesn't know who he is. Is
Mm.
that problem?
Well, and I think so. From what I know of Buddhism, um, the end is not as important as the path.
mm,
So
mm,
as long as you continue
mm,
searching, as long as you continue questioning what I am, who am I think that's more important than coming to a final goal.
mm,
So, and when we talk about Shinjin as well, uh, there are many stories of individuals. uh, It's not like you suddenly have this awakening and then you become the saintly person for the rest of your life. And um, there were stories of individuals, the Myokoni stories of individuals who had, they were known as these very pious individuals. And there's one Myokoni, I can't remember his name, is, was it Gentaro? Anyways, um, this individual, he wasn't a very nice person at all. Um,
mm,
in fact, he drank, and from what I hear, this is in the 1800s, but
mm,
he
mm,
he did hit his wife. I think domestic violence. Of course, different times. So I'm not saying domestic violence is good at all, but back then I guess it was more acceptable, or it wasn't what it is today. Anyways, um, it said that one day he came back from the fields and he was very sweaty. He wanted to take a bath, and his wife hadn't. They had to heat the bath by the firewood, and she hadn't prepared the bath yet. And he was upset, and he said, according to the incident, he raised a cane to beat her when he suddenly realized himself, and he is said to have ran out of the house, went to the local temple, went into the Hondo, and sat in front of the Buddha, Amida Buddha, and said, "There's my foolish self again." So, yeah, in this case, he by no means was he a good person, uh, but through listening to the teachings, he saw his foolish being. And I don't know how I think he did change for the better, but he also realized that that's a part of that was a part that is who he is.
mm,
And uh, maybe I'm making this one a little more difficult, but basically, I think it's not an end all. To say, "Oh, I have Shinji now; everything's wonderful now." I don't think that's it. I think it's just a deepening of life or understanding of life, and that continues. So I think, you know, uh, I think your comments are very real and sincere. That I don't think any of us truly know who we are. I think
mm,
all of us are on journeys that are continuing to find who we are. And I think according to the teachings of Buddhism, that's wonderful. That path is more important than the end, the
mm,
journey.
mm,
So the one thing you can say is on that path, make sure you enjoy the view. So enjoy the flowers, enjoy the, what's going on as you're going through that path.
mm.
Yeah. Any other comments, or anybody could chime in? Karen, you want to say something?
Yes, thank you. This has been very
Oh, I was talking to Karen Anzai. Karen
oh,
Miyashiro.
are there
Yeah,
two? Is the other Karen here?
yeah, there's two Karens. So Karen
Oh,
Anzai, go
there
ahead.
is. Oh, there's the other Karen. Hi, Karen. When we recite the Nembutsu, and
Yeah,
I'm very new to Jodo Shinshu, it seems sometimes in the Sunday service that the Namo Amida Butsu is shortened even more.
Yes, yes.
I'm curious about that, and what is the proper way to recite?
Well, so um, the proper is Namo Amida Butsu. That's the proper way. Okay. But over time, it has been simplified. So people say Namandabu, 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 and that's also an accepted uh, iteration of that pronunciation. It's not it's not the proper, the right full um, iteration or chanting pronunciation, but it is commonly accepted. Um, and again, whether it's Naman Dabusu or so in Japan, for a long time it was Na Mu Mu Ami Dabutsu. Okay. And now they've changed it to Na Mo Mo Ami Dabutsu, or both are acceptable. Although that second character in the Japanese pronunciation, you can't pronounce that second character as Mo. It's Mu, Mu. So when you read that character, normally it's Namu Amida Butsu. And that's what um, it has been for quite a while. But you see, and this happens with, it's called phonetic transliteration, where they're just taking sounds and putting characters that have similar sounds. So they're taking a Sanskrit word, um, namas. Namas is where the namo comes from. And namas is closer to mo than mu. And that's why they now say namo amidabutsu as well, right? So, yeah, these are all different ways of saying namandabu, namo amidabutsu. Uh,
And
yeah.
Butsu, what's the meaning of Butsu?
Oh, Butsu is Buddha.
Buddha? It is
Yeah.
Buddha.
It,
Yeah.
it's it's a Japanese pronunciation for Buddha.
Okay.
Okay. And so in Chinese, there's a fo, fo, right?
Thank you.
Or fa. So they'll say Namo Amitafa. I've seen it both, fo and fa.
Lovely.
Any
Thanks.
other questions or comments? The other Karen?
Hi, Sensa. Thank you.
Hi.
I really like that part that you told us about Uno Sensa because I remember that Dharma talk, but I'd forgotten it until you mentioned it. And it's so charming that the elbow bends inward. It's very engaging. So my question then is, so if we awaken to the infinite life and light that sustains us, which is the experience of Shinjin, do you think we're like flashlights and sometimes we're on and but sometimes we're not because life is busy and we get mad when we're stuck in traffic and we get impatient and we forget to listen to the calling voice of the Dharma. So that's why we need to go to the temple or we need to read the sutras as reminders to turn our flashlights back on and tap into the Buddha that is within our hearts.
Yeah, I think that's a good analogy. I think uh, having that reminder is always good. There's I think it was Audi. It was one of my favorite commercials because I thought it was so cool. There was a commercial in one of the cars, and he's driving on this highway, and everything slows down, and everything is almost perfect, and then he thinks, "Oh, I wonder what we're having for dinner," and all of it suddenly goes away, right? And I think that's what it is that we have moments of connectedness or clarity or awakening,
Mhm.
but uh, then we're in a fog again, right? Then I'm frustrated as I was before. But I think with the Amida Buddha, it is as we are. So don't worry about that. In fact, Shinran told his one of his closest disciple, Yuyembo, because Yuyembo asked him once, he said to Shinran, I know I should be rejoicing at being able to recite the Nembutsu and wanting to enter the Pure Land. But he said, I really don't feel that. And Shinran didn't admonish him. He said, Yuyembo, you too, you have similar, you have the same thoughts. He said, I also have those very same thoughts. And he says, the reason why I have those thoughts, I know it's because of my defilements. It's because of my ego, my attachments that I have. And that makes me even more so sure that there is this working of Amida, because this foolish being, even a foolish being as myself, can hear the Dharma. So for Shinran, he recognized, that he had these faults, and but even as with that, just keep on listening, and then you have moments of clarity or moments, incidents in your life, and I think that's what it is. Is it's nothing, but the one thing you do have is a settled mind that there are going to be ups and downs, but deep underneath, there is that acceptance or that things will that we are in the embrace of this oneness that exists. So even though the outer trappings, there be many things going on, by continuing to listen, by receiving the Dharma, there is an underlying, and this is what we call settled mind, or in Japanese, anji.
So then, Sensei, I think, you know how it's teaching, practice, awaken mind? That's not then a linear thing. It's more a circular thing, because even though we have, the beginnings of that settled mind as human beings, because we are filled with defilements just naturally, everybody's like that. We have to keep listening to the teachings and practicing, attending the service and practicing, trying to be aware of, where we are and how we are with our defilements, all the while, having the settled mind.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think Buddhism is a teaching that is not linear in all of their teachings, and it's not even circular, cyclical. It's everything almost is interconnected at the same time. So where where there's a teaching and a practice and awakening, but that awakening also helps with the teachings, and so it all.
It's that diagram you showed us, the perpendicular and the horizontal in the circle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the one way of looking at it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Sensei. These sessions have been really interesting.
Oh, well, thank you. Anybody else wish to chime in or say anything? Yeah.
Yes. Reverend Grant, what's the format going to be when you're in Hawaii giving these talks? Is it going to be over a course of a number of days, or is it going to
Yeah.
be?
So I'm doing 3 sessions on Saturday. And then Sunday morning, I have their Ohigan service. And then Sunday afternoon, there's one last session. So 4 sessions, and also the a Sunday service. Yeah.
Wow.
That's an intense weekend. You got to
Mhm.
make time to go to the beach.
I fly out on Monday at 10 o'clock their time in the evening, so I have Monday afternoon, Monday to the sensei there said he'll show me around, take me around. Is there anything you want from Maui?
Ah,
Can I
yeah,
bring you home something from Maui?
yeah. Just fill the space between your toes with sand.
Oh, okay.
That's good. Is the temple
Lahaina?
in Lahaina? It's destroyed in the fire. Is that correct?
Yeah, the temple in Lahai, I don't think they're anywhere near starting up reconstructing. I don't even know even in the town of Lahaina whether people are able to go back in because of the all the toxicity that's probably around.
Oh,
So I don't think it's a quick fix, you know. Uh, but I'll
hmm.
find out more
Well,
when I'm there.
I've really enjoyed the sessions. Um, I'm really looking forward to the next sessions, whatever they may be. Do you have any ideas or um, any desires to what's going to follow and when?
Yeah, not right now. So actually, after this, I have to. There are a couple of things, as I mentioned in our AGM as well. But one is I do have to work on. I said that we would do a workshop on funeral procedures, right? And the rites of passage of death. So that I have to work on, and I'm hoping we could do that maybe April or May. So that, and the other major thing that I need to really get working on is that we do want to produce a new Seitem for our temple, the hardcover one. And yeah, I've talked to you about that, Doug. So that's going to take up quite a bit of effort to do that, I think. So those
Well,
are
thank you
the
very much. Really
two
appreciate.
main things that, and then also I have to start planning for the uh, Obon, Vancouver Island Obon tour, which will go in August. It'll be a smaller scale than the one we did before. We're not going to rent a charter bus this year, but it probably means I will be renting a 14-seater bus for up to 14 people to come and join the trip.
Thank you,
You're,
and
you're
thanks for the earworm. I'll be actually uh, I'll be hearing Meatloaf for the rest of the night now that you mentioned that in your talk. Thanks a lot.
yeah, it's always a good talk to go to. Oh, Denise, yeah, go ahead, Denise.
Oh, thanks, Sensei. I've really enjoyed these sessions too. And thank you for mentioning the funeral protocols because I had emailed you regarding that. And I'm going to be away at the end of April to mid-May. I'm actually going to Japan with my daughter, so
Right.
I'm so excited about that. So do you know if that would be the time frame for the funeral protocols? Because I'm
I
very
haven't
interested in that.
really thought
Okay.
when it would be, but it won't be end of April because that's when we have our national AGM in Toronto. So it won't
Okay.
be end of April. So um, more likely May that we'll be holding that. And so if it's better for you if we wait till like the latter part of May, we could probably. I don't have any problems with. Uh,
If that doesn't put anyone out, that would be fantastic.
yeah.
Mhm.
Also, yeah, I did meet after this, after I get back from Maui, and I did get your email about going to Japan and asking for some advice, and I would love to, if you have time in Kyoto, I can make arrangements so you can get a tour of the Honganji and see some of the area that's not open to the public as well.
Oh, we would really appreciate that. That would be
Yeah.
that would be
So,
great. And I know you're really busy right now, so
if you could get back to me once I get back from Maui, and then I would gladly help you out with that.
thank you.
Welcome. Okay. If I don't hear from anybody else, well, thank you all again for sharing the time with me, and yeah, we'll look forward to the next time.
Thank you very much, Sensei.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sensei.